This is my theory of how Gallagher from Honkai Star Rail is the reincarnation of the painter from Layers of Fear. Disclaimer, this is going to be a long video, it's just my headcanon, so if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. Also be aware this might be a little disorganized because I'm not used to making videos like this, but I've been comparing these two characters for a while now, ever since Gallagher's English voice actor was announced, and while this started as a silly headcanon, it's honestly grown over the course of the Penacony story to the point where I felt like I had to make this. Please bear with me, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how a gacha game character could possibly have anything to do with a protagonist from a horror game. I know it sounds strange, but they honestly have a lot in common. Not only that, their differences make so much sense as well. Of course, now, spoilers here, I'm aware of the fact that Gallagher is a virtual character created by a fictionologist, who in Gallagher's story suggests he is very close to himself, but until we learn who they are and know more about them, I'm sticking to the character of Gallagher, who was created and was the Hound of the Watchmaker. Before I go any further, let me briefly explain Layers of Fear for those that don't know. The game centers around a painter who is stuck in a nightmarish loop trying to create his magnum opus. He believes by going through this process, he will be able to bring back his family or his career that were lost through a series of terrible circumstances, some of which he is to blame for. His method of creating this painting is a bit gruesome, as to be expected from a horror game, which shows his very warped mental state. Sadly, the canon ending has him forever trapped in this loop, doing the process over and over again to make a masterpiece that never comes. There's obviously more to the story than that, but that sums it up in a nutshell. Now, there are supernatural factors involved in the story, such as a cosmic entity known as the Rat Queen that messes with artists behind the scenes. That's a can of worms unto itself, so moving on. Okay, now to start with small similarities between the two. The painter and Gallagher share the same English voice actor, Eric Braw. That got me linking the two to start off with, but of course, that's far from enough because, voice actors will voice a wide variety of characters. For their respective appearances, the painter and Gallagher wear a similar setup of vests, slacks, shoes, and they both have brown hair with an unkempt nature to them. And I found it an interesting detail that their clothes just happen to be untucked on the same side. Like seriously, what are the odds of that? I flipped when I saw that on Gallagher. So they do have a lot in common, obviously, and that's just the beginning. But I will mention as well that the differences are important here too. That's because that I believe that the painter's flaws and desires, which led to his downfall in life, are corrected and actually fulfilled in Gallagher. For starters, in Layers of Fear, the painter is symbolized in various sections to be the equivalent of the big bad wolf, especially in the eyes of his daughter. I mean, just look at these drawings he did for Little Red Riding Hood. Oh my god. Which is amusing when you think that Gallagher created the dormancy meme as this rather frightening creature, even though its purpose is much more innocuous. Maybe it was inspiration from his past self. Either way, the painter has been compared to the wolf quite a few times over the games. On the other side of the coin, Gallagher is a hound for the Watchmaker and the Bloodhound family, a protector in every sense of the word. So he does have that hound-wolf symbolism, just like the painter does, but in a different way. It's flipped on its head. He can be a bit of a loner, but his hound qualities offer security and protection rather than viciousness. And while Gallagher can fight, it's not an integral part of his character, which is why we don't see any cutscenes of him fighting. The painter was a veteran of World War I, so he can fight as well, but it's only told in environmental storytelling, since it's not the core of his character either. Now, given the painter's cruel fate, has Gallagher's philosophy make a lot more sense. To quote, history fictionologists believe that the past determines the future. When a civilization's history is definite, its future development is doomed as all possibilities are eliminated, leaving only a sad and rigid path forward. Because of his past life ending in absolute ruin, Gallagher is ready to take whatever means necessary to keep all paths open, even if it means rewriting history. On another note, the painter has a prosthetic leg from his injuries in World War I, while Gallagher's main fighting style is through kicks, except during his ult. Plus, Layers of Fear 2023 shows us that the painter, while having access to electricity, doesn't like it and prefers candles and fire due to their warmth.
I need the fire. The lamps are so cold.
If he was a Honkai character, he'd surely use fire, which Gallagher does. When Gallagher's downed in battle, he says,
"If I could do it all again."
Which is very reminiscent of the painter's loop ending, where he realizes he failed to create his magnum opus and starts the process all over again. If he's revived in battle, Gallagher then says,
"My mission isn't over."
Which shows his persistence for Penacony's freedom. So he'll try again to finally get it right, which is something written on the wall of the painter's workshop before he begins his loop. Get it right this time. Also, you know how Gallagher yawns in one of his idle animations? That's on par with the painter, as the painter is known for working all night in his workshop on art, sometimes staying in there for days. The two are hopelessly sleep-deprived. Now, adding to the hound aspect, Gallagher tells us in texts that he adopted a robo-dog that can be seen similar in style to like a Doberman, and you can find a Doberman statue that represents Gallagher after the 2.2 story quest. Well, guess who also owns a Doberman? The painter. He has a dog named Poppyelle. While the painter got his dog for unknown reasons, possibly due to ego, Gallagher took in the robo-dog in admiration of its determination and wanted to help it. In the Layers of Fear series, the Rat Queen is implied to be working behind the scenes of it all, but in terms of every artist that suffers from her, she describes them as
a creature trapped in a prison of its own making.
In this way, the painter essentially trapped himself in a cage, both physically and metaphorically, to create his magnum opus, which is made possible by the Rat Queen's powers.
I can't escape too.
He never freed himself, which would lead to the fact that when Gallagher was created, he was already trapped physically and mentally, in a cage, which was Penacony. Now, the painter is very intense about his art, and Gallagher is about mythology as well. In fact, they describe their respective passions in very similar ways.
Art is not about watching. It's about feeling. With all senses, every part of your body. It's the only way to understand it. The only way to eliminate doubt. Making a drink is a sensory skill. In dreams, creating fizzy concoctions requires adding a bit of your mood. Heavier if you're troubled, touch sweeter if you're in high spirits. It's not just about mixing beverages. It's about mixing the experiences of life.
With the painter so passionate about his art, why doesn't Gallagher also do art then? Aside from the fact that reincarnations are not completely the same as their past selves, I think that the trauma and danger his talent brought him in his past life had Gallagher unconsciously seek refuge in drinks instead, the very thing his past self found comfort in. However, the painter was an alcoholic, and while it served to comfort him in terrible times, it also contributed to tearing his family apart.
You put more and more locked doors between us, but it's my drinking that ruins the family? This is childish.
Gallagher, on the other hand, serves drinks to make people happy, enjoying them without a detriment to himself, and is on the other side of the bar. He's in control of it, instead of it controlling him. The painter has always been a volatile character, emotional and sensitive. In his grief from his wife's death, he further spirals and pushes away all his friends and loses custody of his daughter in the process. Gallagher, while stoic, is very loyal to those he cares for, and while he's gruff on the exterior like his predecessor, has a sensitive side and is always there when it counts, no matter what. Robin confirms this, saying,
Mr. Gallagher likes to keep his softer side hidden, and even though he might seem a little disorganized at times, he's always there for his friends when it matters most.
This shows that while the two have similarities in that they are gruff on the outside and soft on the inside, the painter was very erratic and kept loved ones away in hard times, whereas Gallagher remains by their sides through it all. Another thing I found interesting was when Gallagher calls out to Wake Sunday after being transported to Dreamflux Reef by calling him Birdie.
Talking in your sleep, Birdie? Time to wake up.
What's so interesting about that? Well, the painter sometimes calls his daughter Birdie as well.
Don't be scared. It's just a book, Birdie. You see, Birdie, if you move it here and here, bam.
While the painter wanted to be a good father to his daughter, his overzealous need for her to follow in his footsteps of making art, while good-intentioned, caused her to feel imprisoned by it. The painter deeply regrets what he put his child through, saying,
I should have let her express herself.
while he did have sweet moments with his child, they were less frequent than they should have been. Reincarnating as Gallagher has him being a father figure to Misha, as he knew him since he was little, and in a symbolic way becomes the better role model he should have been in his past life. When Gallagher and Misha are added onto the same team, Gallagher says,
Enough gallivanting, kid. Better get to bed early, or you won't grow.
while Misha says,
Whoa, Gallagher, you're here? Check it out. I can protect everyone too.
this adorable dynamic seems like what the painter would have wanted with his daughter in an ideal world. Now back on the subject of Robin, when you add Gallagher to your party with her in it, he says,
No matter where I am in the future, I will definitely still hear your singing.
this is significant because the painter's late wife was a musician. Her songs inspired him to make great paintings, to the point where he called her his muse. Music is incredibly important to the painter, so it makes sense for Robin's singing to resonate so strongly for Gallagher, as it reminds him of his past love.
The things she could do with the piano. In the right hands, it's the most powerful instrument. It can break any man.
Side note, I want to mention the fact that the wife's story in Layers of Fear also deals with a lot of bird trapped in a cage imprisoned symbolism, which can be applied to Robin a bit too, which I just find interesting. Yet above all, I have to say that the main thing Gallagher fulfills in the painter's stead is letting go of perfection and actually finishing it. This desire plagues the painter beginning to end, from a note at the start of Layers of Fear to one of the possible endings. He is constantly seeking perfection. He's beyond obsessed with completing the magnum opus, telling himself over and over to finish it.
This is who I am. Without it, I'm broken. I have to finish it. Be an example. Finish it. Finish it or die trying. Finish it if it kills you. Don't let the doubt get you.
Since the loop ending is canon, this unfortunately never happens. But for Gallagher, he did what he set out to do. He completed the mission and tasks set forth by the Watchmaker.
Since he's already carried out his last wish, my final mission is complete.
He doesn't want perfection because that is what led Penacony to its current state, which became a worse prison than it was before. A pristine existence might seem like paradise, but comes at the cost of your autonomy and freedom. The painter unknowingly sacrificed his freedom for a chance to attain perfection and fame. Gallagher, on the other hand, fought for freedom by bringing in others to stop the Stellaron with the knowledge that it would bring imperfect reality with it. In the end, he was content in the face of his ending existence. Which is amusing because Gallagher suspected he was going to hell for the longings of freedom he had, telling Mikhail's lifeless body,
If longing for freedom means going to hell, then I'll be joining you soon, you fool.
whereas the painter performs grisly means of completing his magnum opus, which he acknowledges in writing that you can only decipher in the game's files, which says, "There was no use in looking back, though my soul was damned." So the painter expresses that his soul is damned, but when he reincarnates as Gallagher, he chooses a path of redemption instead. Yet he still thinks that even after this second life, he's still going to hell. Perhaps this isn't just due to guilt over betraying Mikhail by doing nothing, but the fact that he betrayed his wife and daughter by doing nothing in his past life, something he was unable to fix then, whereas in this new life, he could. Gallagher ultimately embraces what the painter couldn't. When the painter should have let go of his perfectionism, he clung to it obsessively. This craving for the ideal drove the painter insane and alone, without resolution. On the other hand, Gallagher embraced imperfection, knowing it brought freedom. Gallagher, in the painter's words, finished it, and was content in the end. He might have lost friends along the way, but he knew he was going to see them again, and was keenly aware of the friends he had just made from the Astral Express. In this way, Gallagher is the fulfillment of the painter's desires and flaws. He is the painter's reincarnation and redemption arc.
I guess I've always believed that in an imperfect world, it's worth it to strive for perfection. To the imperfect tomorrow.